Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and today we're on to part 2 of the series I started yesterday, where we are evaluating the current state of the Celtic squad as we move into the summer transfer window. Yesterday we looked at the squad, we evaluated who might stay, who might go, and what needs to be done to have a clear out at Celtic. Today we're going to look at the transfer side of things. We're going to look at the shopping list for Celtic in this summer transfer window and what positions we need to look at to strengthen, not only to try and win a double or a treble, but to try and move forward in Europe. A big summer ahead. Hello, if you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated as we try and get as close as we can to 50,000 subscribers this year. I started this series yesterday on the channel. If you missed part 1, I suggest you go back and watch it so you can come into this one knowing what we're on about. We're going to have a brief recap in a moment over that part, but basically we looked at the entire Celtic squad and decided, in my own opinion, who I think should stay and who I think should go, which ties nicely into part 2 today, where we're going to lay out what I think would be the ideal transfer plans for Celtic. Keep in mind, it's one man's opinion, but I'm going to try and look at it as subjectively as possible. So, let's get into it, shall we? So, just a brief reminder of what happened in yesterday's video. Here is a screenshot of what I determined was the best case scenario for our squad this summer. Now, keep in mind, not everybody will agree with my decisions. As I said at the start of the video, it's one man's opinion, and that being mine in this instance. This is what I thought was best case scenario. Now, I know this won't happen. It's not exactly how Celtic are going to operate this summer. Every player who I think should leave the club won't leave the club. I assume some of them might actually stay. There's certain players there whose future might still exist within the boundaries of Celtic Football Club, but that was what I think should have been the case with what we do with our players this summer. This is the current state of the Celtic squad as it lies in terms of depth in every area. This is what we have moving into the 2024-25 campaign. As you can see, a lot of names there of players who don't even get a sniff. James McCarthy, for example, who has been MIA since he arrived at the club. Players like Mikey Johnson, who's been out on loan but returning from West Brom. Haksabanovic returning from Stoke City. A few names in there of players who really don't have a place at this club. Which leaves us with a total first team number of 28 players. And that's without bringing anybody up from the B team, remember. Most importantly, we do tick all the boxes when it comes to criteria for Champions League football as it stands. But will it remain that way? Because this, on the other hand, this graphic now on screen, is what would happen if somehow Celtic worked around what I put in my video yesterday. As I said, just to make it perfectly clear, it's not as if I dictate what happens at Celtic, and it's not as if I have an inkling to know what's going to happen through the summer, but I thought there was room for 13 players to go, whether it be on permanent transfers or on loan deals, and this would be the state of the squad. Much thinner, isn't it? A lot thinner. As you can see, in the midfield, we have 3 players who I think are good enough to stay at Celtic at the minute. Hatate, McGregor and Tomoki Iwata. They're the only 3 who stay in my squad moving into next season. So, yeah, it would take us down to 15 players. We mentioned that at the end of yesterday's video. 15 players who I think are good enough to stay at Celtic or should stay at Celtic. I think some players need to move out on loan to aid their development. I think some people have just naturally come to the end of their Celtic career. And obviously the likes of Joe Hart retiring. Matt O'Reilly probably leaving. So, yeah, from 28 players to 15. How do you recover? How do you add to that? The whole point in today's video is to go through the Celtic shopping list for this summer's transfer window. Everybody will have differing opinions on this. Some people might think we need extra reinforcement in certain areas compared to where I think we need reinforcement, so just take that on board. But we're going to go through my shopping list. What do I think Celtic need to make this a 25-man squad that's strong enough to challenge, not only domestically, but on a European level? Well, let's get down to it, shall we? So then, the Celtic 24-25 summer transfer list. We start at the back and we start with goalkeepers, where Celtic not only need 1 goalkeeper, but 2 this summer, in my opinion. Realistically, we're looking at Joe Hart and Benjamin Siegrist both leaving the club. Joe Hart has announced his retirement. Benjamin Siegrist has been on the edge of a move for consecutive transfer windows now. There was talk of it last summer. There was talk of it in January. Surely this is the window where he finally gets the move he's been waiting on, which means Scott Bain will be the only recognised first-team keeper at the club. Now, some people might be saying, Toby Oluwayemi, he's coming back. Give him a space in the team. I'm not utterly convinced that he is going to be an option for Celtic. And I also don't know if I'd be comfortable with Scott Bain and Toby Oluwayemi being the backup keepers should our new first choice keeper get injured or suspended. That's the only thing that worries me, especially if it was over an extended period of time. That works for maybe 1 or 2 games over the course of a campaign, but if your first team keeper gets a 6-month injury, are you happy with Bain and Oluwayemi? Ask yourself that question. Celtic need 2 goalkeepers. Now, we have been linked with tons, and to name a few would actually take me quite a long time because we've been linked with that many. I think best case scenario for me is we go and get Cohen Casteels on a free transfer. I think Celtic should do everything in their power to make it happen. There's so many benefits that come from that. You're getting a goalkeeper who has played 275 games for Wolfsburg in the Bundesliga, one of the top 4 leagues in this planet, in this continent, and generally just a really good keeper. You'd be getting him for free. Yes, there would be a hefty sign-on probably, and probably a decent wage as well, but if you get him for free, that means there's money to put to other areas in this team, because we're going to need a few, we're going to need a few positions. So I think that would be the best case scenario for me, and then alongside a backup, I like the look of Alec McCarthy as a backup. I think he'd be great from Southampton. If we could sign both of them, it'd be great, but I know there's a massive stumbling block there when it comes to wages, because both Casteels and McCarthy would ask for, I assume, rather large wages. So maybe it's not utterly realistic that we sign both of those players, but for me, if we could sign a Casteels or a goalkeeper of similar quality as our first choice and a decent backup, somebody happy to be number 2, then we've started strong in this window from the back. A left-sided centre-half. This should be a priority for Celtic. The centre-back coverage right now is quite vast when you look at the names at the club. Realistically, you're looking at Lagerbielke leaving, Kobayashi leaving. There is talk from Anthony Joseph that Stephen Welsh will be allowed to move on as well this summer. That coverage isn't going to be vast anymore. And right now, it might be vast, but it's not filled with quality. These aren't great centre-halves that we have at the club. Somebody needs to come in to replace Liam Scales and be Cameron Carter-Vickers' quality partner. Somebody who is as good as Carl Starfelt, as comfortable as Carl Starfelt, if not better than Carl Starfelt. And I don't know who that'll be. We've not actually been linked with any centre-halves yet, which is a surprise considering how quick the tabloids usually get moving when it comes to transfer rumours. So we need somebody who's comfortable, somebody who can carry the ball out, somebody who doesn't dilly-dally. Scales is definitely going to remain at the club, as he should. He's a really good option to have, but we can't go into another campaign with him starting alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers. I'm sorry to the avid Liam Scales fans out there, but just it simply can't be the case for Celtic. We need quality. I would actually like a little bit of experience if possible. I'm not saying go and sign a 32, 33-year-old centre-half, but somebody maybe in their mid-20s who has played football at high level, maybe some European football as well. That would be ideal to bring some reassurance to the back line and stability on the left-hand side, where I think we're considerably weaker than the right. Talking about our weaknesses on the left-hand side, a quality left-back is needed in this transfer window. Now, we've already been linked with one over the past couple of weeks. Irakli Azarove from Shakhtar Donetsk was linked with a move to Celtic. I don't think there's much in it. I think it's a case of an agent kind of ramping up some interest in their player and trying to get a move in the works. But he has been linked with Celtic nonetheless, which maybe indicates that we are already looking for options. He is apparently on a short list somewhere at the club, as I'm sure a few names are, but we need a quality left back, somebody who matches the quality on the right hand side. I think Greg Taylor has been a magnificent servant to Celtic over the past few years, and he's really came on leaps and bounds from what he was when he first arrived, because there was a time where you thought maybe Greg Taylor was never going to cut it at Celtic. He's still of use, and I think definitely still has minutes to play at Celtic and games to contribute to, but generally speaking, I think that there can be a significant upgrade on that left hand side. A left back who maybe has physicality in their game. You notice that Greg Taylor's obviously smaller in stature and power as well, significantly smaller than most left backs throughout the continent. So when he plays in Europe, he might be kind of susceptible to being bullied a little bit. We see it time and time again. People cry out for a physical left back. So I don't necessarily think Irakli Azarovi is the answer to the left back problems, because he doesn't really fit the bill for a powerful, stronger left back. But I think we should look in that market for somebody who maybe adds physicality, but also has the quality to carry the ball forward, do a lot of heavy lifting that maybe Dyson Maeda doesn't have of his technical ability. We need a quality left back. It's a position we've neglected for years now. We can't go through another transfer window where we neglect the left back area. We tried with Bernabé, it was a failure. We tried with Bolingoli, it was a failure. We tried with Diego Laxalt, it was a failure. The left back position has been a struggle for years for Celtic now. They need to get it right. One of the most important areas to sign in this season is the Matt O'Reilly replacement. Who's going to replace somebody the quality of Matt O'Reilly? It's a massive question. It's a difficult question to answer, because I don't know, and it depends how ambitious Celtic are in trying to sign an O'Reilly replacement. But we can't go through a transfer window where we don't replace him, because losing a player of his quality would be, it could be dangerous. It really could. We struggled at points this season, and at points this season Matt O'Reilly single-handedly dragged us through games. That's the kind of player you're trying to replace. He will inevitably leave the club this summer. There is no doubt about that. I don't think Paulo Bernardo can be the Matt O'Reilly replacement. We'll come on to talk about Bernardo in a moment, but we need to sign someone of quality. Now listen, Matt O'Reilly was signed for £1.5 million from League One side MK Dons. The Matt O'Reilly replacement doesn't need to be a £10 million glamour signing. Please keep that at note. We don't need a £10 million glamour signing, but Celtic need to do their due diligence. They need to be careful with this one. They need to sign someone who is going to be comfortable enough to come in and start alongside Rio Hatate in the midfield. It's big shoes to fill. And there we go, Paulo Bernardo. His name is on the shopping list. We spoke about Paulo Bernardo yesterday in the tier list video, and the day prior in a transfer update video as well. So I'm not going to spend too long on Paulo Bernardo here. I think Celtic should spend the £6 million on him. Maybe he is the Matt O'Reilly replacement. I think he's got really good attributes. I think he's really good as a footballer, and he's got quality. Maybe with more minutes and consistent starts, eventually he finds his footing as the Matt O'Reilly replacement. But we need a couple of centre mids this summer anyway. It's not just like we need Bernardo and no one else. You've seen in my squad depth image a while ago that if people do leave the club, we will be thin in that area, and it's a very important area to have depth. Bring Bernardo in. There's not a lot of guaranteed quality out there for somebody who's probably happy enough to start the odd game and then be on the bench the odd game. I think he's pretty content with that at the moment. So I would throw the money and sign him up. Just saying. A quality right winger. One of the positions which I think has actually gone under the radar in recent weeks because of how good James Forrest has been. And James Forrest has been pretty damn good. Not taking anything away from him. I'm not even suggesting that we should suddenly forget about him and bin him from this squad. No, he's still got a part to play. But Celtic need a quality right winger. I think. And you know what? I'll put this out there as well. I don't think it necessarily needs to be a right winger. Just a winger in general. It would be actually pretty preferable if they could play on both sides. But it's hard to come across someone versatile and good enough. I would prefer someone on the right than the left at this moment in time. I think that James Forrest is naturally getting on a bit, and we've got to think about beyond James Forrest. James Forrest has been brilliant, but I don't think you can rely on that. I think there's evidence of that in the past. I just think that we need someone in there who's going to complete the front three, who's going to be a really good addition to the forward line, and is going to be clinical in Europe as well. I think one of the problems we've had in recent years is, you know, some really good right wingers and really good wingers in general have played for the club, but then it comes to Europe and the step up is maybe a bit too far. Last year we were linked with Daniel Podence on the left hand side. He was probably a player of significant quality who would have added to our European challenges. We need a conversation like that again. We need somebody who's maybe known, somebody that's going to come in and score goals. I think a right winger is quietly one of the most important positions we've got to improve on this summer. And finally, the last player / position on my transfer shopping list is none other than the man himself, Adam Ida. Yes, I mean, enough said. What do I need to add that I haven't? I made a full video 2 days ago on the channel called Celtic, please, please, please sign Adam Idah. If you need my opinion or anything to suggest why we should sign him, go and watch that video. He's on the shopping list for me. He's got to be signed. Has to be signed. Maybe not the only striker we need to sign. You might have an opinion that we need another one, and I'm more than happy to listen to that. But Adam Idah's a priority for me. Sign him up. And at the bottom of my wee transfer shopping list, I have a couple of bonus buys. You know, these would be great additions. Here they are. My bonus buys for the summer window would be a new contract for Daniel Kelly, if somehow we can persuade him to stay here rather than go to Bayer Leverkusen, and Lennon Miller from Motherwell. I really want Celtic to sign Lennon Miller. I think he would be a great addition. Importantly about both of these players, both Lennon Miller and Daniel Kelly, currently of Celtic, is they would come a long way in helping our European quota, you know, which is very, very important. We need to have 8 Scottish players at the team, or 8 players trained in Scotland before their 21st birthday. Lennon Miller would tick that box. Daniel Kelly would tick both the club trained and nation trained box. I think it would be vital to go out and offer him money, try and match what Leverkusen are giving. They can't be offering him too much. He's a young lad who's barely played first team football. It can't be a big, big contract. Celtic can compete with that. They should be competing with that. They should do everything in their power to keep Daniel Kelly at the club. And I think Lennon Miller would just be a really smart signing, because he's somebody who's got he's 19 and he looks great. And the last time there was a great young Scottish central midfielder in this country, I chanted from the rooftops for Celtic to sign him. They didn't sign him, and look how that turned out. He's doing pretty well at Aston Villa. So, I'm not asking for much, am I? I'm not asking for... That's a lot. I know it's a lot, and people might laugh at this transfer list, and rightly so. It's a lot to ask for. I don't expect Celtic to go and make 8 signings. Well, I would like them to, but it's not like I have my expectations that high. I think that all of us as Celtic fans need to rein in our expectations a little bit when it comes to the summer transfer window, and that's something that we've got to really remember. It's important to remember that Celtic might only make 4 or 5 signings and keep a lot more of the players that I would like to see leave the club. That's realistically what will happen. But I think if they want to back the manager, these are areas we need to improve in. We've seen that through the season. There was points. Just because we won a double doesn't mean we can forget the points where things were a bit bleak, because there was a lot of moments like that and we knew we needed improvement. So these are the areas which I think Celtic need to go and improve in. And this is why. Remember the squad depth graphics I showed at the start of the video? This would be the ideal, yes, ambitious state of the Celtic squad after a successful transfer window in my eyes. If we went out and made all of those additions, but take away the bonus buy of Lennon Miller. I forgot about that for a moment. We'll take Lennon Miller out of it. This would be the ideal, but I know it's really ambitious state of the Celtic squad if we went out and made those 8 signings. If we went out and signed Idah, Bernardo, a new centre-back, a new left-back, a new right winger and 2 goalkeepers, it would leave us with a 24-man squad for the Champions League. However, we still need 2 locally trained players in there. As you can see, Daniel Kelly is still included to try and help bump up the club-trained quota. Without him, that would raise another problem that we would need to address, which is why I think I stress the importance of giving him a new contract. This would leave a slot open to make it a 25-man squad, but you've got to remember we'd have to maybe register somebody else rather than... We'd have to leave maybe a foreign player out. Ultimately, this is a squad I'd be very happy with. I think it would give us sufficient coverage in every area, and it still leaves a bit of room for maybe an extra signing. If you think that we maybe need depth in a third choice striker or another centre half or another right back. I know people are calling out for signings in those areas. This would be the ideal, ambitious state of the squad for me if we went out and fulfilled that very, very big transfer list of mine, or shopping list of mine. So, there you go. I know that this is a very subjective issue when it comes to signing players. People will want coverage in different areas from where I want coverage to. It just naturally goes like that. But I would be very happy with that as a transfer window. Very ambitious. I know it is. But I think Celtic as a club needs to be ambitious this summer. Without ambition, there's no point in existing. We've been let down for a number of transfer windows in a row now. So I want the club to back the manager, and I want us to try and make a real crack of it in Europe, try and get as far as we can and let us dream a bit. the money that we're going to make from qualification for the Champions League, through Matt O'Reilly's potential departure. We have money to spend. We're going to have upwards of £100 million being brought into the club in the space of a couple of months. Spend it, Celtic. Make it worth time for the fans. It's as simple as that. But anyway, there you go. Let me know your opinions. Let me know where you think we need to sign up and what's on your shopping list for Celtic this summer. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.